Health IQ Podcast, Unlocking Back to School Shots, What Parents Need to Know Now.
Before we know it, school will be starting again here in Quay County. Our special guest today is Adella Vargas, our school nurse for the Tucumcari School District. She has a big job with all those students to take care of. Our crew today is Bobby Hockaday and Joyce Runyon, and I am Brenda Bishop. I know that when my kids were in school, I got really caught off guard when my son switched grades into middle school, I think it was, or one of those grades, and we didn't have his vaccinations up to date, and we couldn't get him his shots before it was time to play sports. Mm-hmm. And so I thought this would be a perfect time to start talking about those, because we'll be doing those sports physicals there, and actually I noticed that you guys even do some at the end of the year instead of just waiting for the beginning of the year, but before we get too busy into summer. Yes. So I thought it was a good time to start talking about vaccines that we need as we transition from grade to grade, and our kids are ready to go into school, and what do we all need? So I guess maybe we should start with those pre-K and kindergartners. Yes. And can you give us sort of a rundown on how these parents know what they need? And that chart is just so confusing.
Yes. So our pre-K, they are required. So some of them we have now are 3-year-olds. So they just have to have all their vaccines up to that age. But then they can also start at 4-year-olds. The 4-year-olds do have to have, they're called 4-year-old shots, and it's a combination. They get like an MMRV, they get the varicella, they get polio, like they get several vaccines. And so I just have to go in and check shot records for all of those. The main thing is the kindergartners, and so they have to make sure that they have those, what we call 4-year-old shots, which is a group of all of those. So, and it's like they have to have 5 DTaP, 4 polio, 2 MMRs, 3 Hibs, 3 Hep Bs, 4 pneumococcal, 2 varicella, and 2 Hep A is what they're required as kindergartners.
So since we don't have pediatricians in our community, sometimes parents skip taking their kids to the doctor, or they don't realize that they needed to go in at certain months. So in order to get them up to that, what they need for like the pre-K and the 4-year-olds, they can't do them all at once, can they?
No.
So how soon do they need to start making sure they're getting their child to the doctor to?
I would actually say probably 3 to 4 months before, because some of them take about a month in between. So they can go get one, but then they'll have to wait a month. And so a lot of them you can get at the same time. It just has to be different arms or whatever.
Right. So if...
But like the ones that are planning on starting this year, I would tell parents, like, go ahead and take them to the doctor and see what immunizations they need.
Right.
So that they'll be ready by August.
And that's if you hadn't done their 6-month or their 2-month or whatever the different.
Yes.
I remember that it seemed like we were going all the time with my little ones to go get their shots. So parents can look that up themselves
it's New Mexico Vax.
Vax.org.
Like VAX.
VAX.
Yes. And so, and if they need any help, they can always call, and I can give them the website.
So if you're not sure, if you can't remember, if you have several kids, you can get them confused pretty easily, because there's just, life is fast and furious.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a good point, is to make sure if you're thinking about putting your kid in school to start now, so there's plenty of time to get them. And in New Mexico, vaccines are free to all of our kids.
Yes.
Which
is wonderful.
No matter what your ability to pay, it doesn't matter. So So we have the before things, and so
and then so we also have, when kids turn 11, they can get the Tdap and meningococcal vaccine, which is required also. But we don't start like counting them until they're going into 7th grade.
7th grade.
So as 7th graders, I have to look at all of those and make sure that they have those. If not, they have to get those. And last year started where we have seniors now have to have a second meningococcal vaccine in order.
Okay. And what does
to
that
be
one
enrolled.
take care of?
It's just
Meningitis?
Yes.
Meningitis?
Thank you.
Okay.
And there's different strains of it too. So there's several vaccines that can cover that also.
So that's sort of a new one. Before they or when they turn seniors, they have to get that.
Yes.
Are there other
and
newer
they can
ones?
get it when they're 16, but they for sure have to have it as a senior.
Okay. Okay, so we know that these kids need these. You said at pre-K and kindergarten, and when they go to middle school or 7th grade, and then seniors. But if we don't keep up with that, how do the schools normally notify parents of these things?
So I usually call parents. So I look at them at all of our enrollment every year. I go through each student's vaccine records and see what they need every year, and then I call. So every year, like my main focus is for those grades like kinder, 7th, and seniors that need those for sure. And then I go through all the other ones. But I do call the parents and let them know. So I usually call, and if they don't have it within 2 weeks, I'll call back again. And sometimes they do have to send out letters saying like your child needs this, because it is a state requirement for kids to have these vaccines. And so we do have a few that have what's called exemptions. And so with those kids, their parents have to file for an exemption every year through the state. And they send all that paperwork in. If the state approves it, then it is good, but it is only good for a year. So,
Okay.
And we only have a few of those.
And actually, when I checked, our rate of having our children up to date is pretty good in all of Quay County, not just Tucumcari, but Tucumcari schools as well.
Yes.
So kudos to you.
Thank you. It's a lot of records.
So why is it important that we make sure we get all these kids vaccinated?
Well, as we can tell right now, there's with like the measles outbreak. So all these vaccines were created to help kind of eradicate these diseases that we used to fight all the time. Chickenpox is a good one also. Like you don't see many chickenpox cases unless they haven't been vaccinated. And same thing goes for the measles nowadays. So it is important that they get all these immunizations to fight against these diseases so that they don't get sick. We don't want them to be sick.
Well, and because kids are with other kids, it
Yes.
spreads well. I can remember those days of chickenpox before the vaccine.
Oh yeah, I had them too. I remember that. It was miserable.
So there are some vaccines that are not required, but they're suggested for our kids, and I think flu is one of those. And are flu vaccines provided at the schools anymore, or?
Yes. So every year we have somebody come in. This year it was Ricky through Public Health, and they came in and administered flu vaccines. We have had some years where we do it through the school-based health center, and they provide those for all the schools. So our rates last year did drop a little bit, and I'm not sure why. But the flu was also pretty bad this year, so
Yes.
it can help so that they don't either get it or that they don't get it as bad.
Well, and whatever went around, our community this year was like a 3-week thing.
Yes.
So I don't know if it was a flu or what it was, but everybody was out for 3 weeks.
A lot of flu, yeah. Lingering coughs.
And of course, I'm sure COVID would be one of those that is also going to be highly suggested by the government for
Yes.
each school year to help protect those kids from, especially our littler ones.
Yeah. And they can get those at any time of the year. We don't provide those at any time, but they can always by their primary doctor. And then another one that is suggested but not required is the HPV vaccine. And that is for those that are around the same age group, for the 7th graders. It is a 2-shot, like you have to go back twice. But it is important because it helps prevent HPV and the cancers associated with it.
Which we don't think of as for our kids, because those are cancers that happen later in life.
Yeah.
But we have to get this vaccine
To
early
help prevent it.
before we get that virus.
Yes.
So we did have a podcast just on that. Carlos came and spoke about the HPV, and it was very interesting. So if you missed that podcast, go back and check it out. It's the cancer killing vaccine or something like that. So you did mention the school-based health center. Can you tell us a little bit about Tucumcari School-Based Health Center and what kinds of services they offer?
Yes. So we have the school-based health center. Right now, we only have it 1 day a week, and it's usually on Mondays. And that is provided through Sunrise Clinics. And we have a nurse practitioner come in every week, and they set up at the high school in the nurse office. So she comes in and she will see like anybody that's got anything wrong, basically. Most of them are students. We see some staff, stuff like that. But it is a great resource. We also do the physicals and stuff for sports, which we're going to be starting those really soon. Because those can be done before school starts next year. And it's helpful for anybody playing sports to get those physicals done.
Right,
And then
saves a frantic trip in the middle of the summer, right?
Yes. Yes, and it saves the practitioners time too, because then they get it done through school instead of that extra visit.
Okay, so you were talking about some other cool services that you have at the clinics with being able to help people maybe when they get sick, not on a Monday?
Yes. So we do have what it's called CSI visits, and we have a computer set up in each nurse office at each school. So one at the elementary, one at middle, and one at high school. And it's a computer, so it's like a face-to-face thing with a nurse practitioner. If we have anybody that comes in that's sick that needs to be seen by a nurse practitioner, and they can't get to their doctor right away, we do call parents and ask if we can get them checked out through there. And it is through Sunrise, but we see anybody. We just have to have permission from the parents. But they get like a full checkup. We can see in their ears. The nurse practitioner can listen to lung and heart sounds. Sorry. There's you can put an eye on somebody, and we can even do like palpitation, like just everything.
Oh, wow.
Like, figure out, and the nurse practitioner can evaluate and give treatment.
That's pretty cool.
Yes.
So many new things coming out in the world of medicine. So I think one thing we didn't say is if your kid does need these vaccines, where can they get them if they don't get them at the student health center?
So we can do The main place is your primary care physician. Another good resource is public health because they have access to all that, and they usually have all the vaccines, and so that's a good place to get them. So usually your doctor or public health.
And they will be running got shots throughout the summer.
Yes, which will be
to help people get
helpful.
everybody's vaccines done. Is there something that we haven't touched on that you want to talk about with vaccines?
I don't think so. No.
Well, we want to thank you for coming. So we have this nice gift for you, one of our health IQ mugs. And
That's cool.
we really appreciate the time you took out of your day. I know you have a super full schedule, but so we really thank you for doing that. And we'd like to thank you all for joining us today for this episode of Health IQ Podcast. Come back for our next episode as we will examine another topic that will be important for your family's health.
Special thanks to our guest contributor, Adella Vargas, Tucumcari Public Schools District Nurse, and our host, Brenda Bishop, Quay County Health Council Coordinator.
Podcast crew. Director, Robert F. Hockaday. Producers, Robert F. Hockaday and Joyce Runyon. Camera operator, Robert F. Hockaday. Second assistant operator, Joyce Runyon. Editor, Joyce Runyon. Music provided by David Morris. Funding for Health IQ provided by a New Mexico Better Together grant. Brought to you by the Quay County Health Council. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Quay County Health. If you have any content ideas, reach out to us by email, healthikpodcast@gmail.com. More info about this topic and more available on our Health IQ blog, QCHEALTHCO.uncil.org.
This podcast was created solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for advice from a healthcare or mental health professional.